Good morning, Houston, and welcome to Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge here on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever. Are you fearful that better health seems out of your reach regardless of how hard you try or whatever you do? Are you afraid of suffering with heart disease or diabetes or lingering with stroke or cancer? Or do you avoid thinking about these things because you'll just try to make the best of it, whatever happens? Are you limited by joint pains or finding that you can't run from your headaches? Maybe you're hesitant to try something new because you're afraid that what you'll do is wrong, or maybe because you'd be better be right, or nothing you do will ever help. Regardless of what might be happening with your health problems, these next few minutes could be the answer to your prayers. Unless, of course, you're convinced that your doctors have done everything possible, or if you've already decided to have surgery but you're waiting until you worsen further. But if you hold out any hope at all, then you should know that we see desperate people every day, people skeptical about whether anything we do can make a difference in their lives. And sure enough, many of them are pleasantly surprised. Maybe you could be one of them. After all, the only thing you have to lose is your discomfort, your fear, your worry, maybe even your anger that no one has really listened to you or that no one has been able to help you. We'll be talking about what you can do to get out of your pain and get on with your life. I've practiced for 25 years, never believing that you're suffering from a deficiency of one or more drugs, or that an operation is probably the best answer. Whatever ails you, God built your system to repair itself and to restore more normal function, and that, in a nutshell, is the whole buzz on the topic of alternative or holistic medicine that you've been hearing about these past few years. Now, drugs and surgery can be helpful, but true natural healing depends on three factors. First, find what's blocking you from feeling better and remove it. Second, find what trace factors you might be missing but you need for repair and provide them. And third, find what switches need to be turned on and turn them on. We'll share practical pointers to help you improve with the most common problems seen in doctors' offices, practical preventive medicine updates to help reduce your risk factors for the most serious diseases that claim our comfort and then our lives, and practical ways to reduce your risks and improve your results with drugs and surgery you might need. As I've said for years, when life is your choice, failure is not an option. So learn more today on how you can succeed. And if what we offer doesn't apply to you right now, then share this life-saving information with family or friends who do need to know. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us in chapter 1, verse 9, that there is no new thing under the sun. So let's see what we might learn from those who've walked the path ahead of us. A.P. Guthrie, a businessman, says, "Successful men usually snatch success from seeming failure. If they know there is such a word as defeat, they will not admit it. They may be whipped, but they are not aware of it. And that is why they succeed." What an interesting perspective, that your worldview is more in the sense of a glass half full than a glass half empty. And if you expect success, what can you achieve? And indeed, that's really the message of our show today. Charlie from Katy called and asked me to explain about sports injuries, what with spring has sprung. And so let's turn our attention to a common problem, which we'll call as joint injuries, a very significant problem, especially if you're suffering. And many people, surprisingly, are. They just get by. Regular medical care for sports injuries and the arthritis that develops, low back pain, neck pain, the headaches that injuries bring on. Sometimes this medical care has been based on a misunderstanding that anti-inflammatory drugs or cortisone or surgery are the only options, besides, of course, learning to live with it. Yet common sense can show you how your condition might respond better than you ever hoped, and you certainly owe it to your family and to yourself to find out more. Now, your body frame, your skeleton, is made of bones and bands that give strength to your structure. And when your joints are strong and stable, you can count on your body to function as intended. And when you function well, like when you were younger, you're at ease with daily activities. And you know what that means. You can bend and reach and walk and run and do whatever you want. Any injury can stretch or tear those ligament bands, those rubber bands, and muscle tendons that hold the bones in place. And instability then begins as a slight wobble. But over time, an unstable wobble wears down your joints, just like a mortar and pestle. We call that arthritis, and that would also degenerate the discs in your neck and back. As your joints weaken with injury, you gradually lose strength and you decline in your function You become less and less at ease, and that, of course, is the slow beginning of dis-ease. Now, you can see how you start to suffer then with various symptoms, and you reach for relief on pharmacy shelves or at the prescription counter. Perhaps your symptoms are severe enough or last long enough that you finally do have surgery. But none of these treatments aim at the true cause of your injury pain, the wobble that weakens the bands holding your bones together. Now, you know about symptoms. There's joint pains and muscle spasms, stiffness and swelling, numbness, headaches, nerve pains, lost sleep, and, of course, irritability and the limitations. So aspirin and ibuprofen and cortisone certainly make you more comfortable, but they stop your repair. They stop the repair of the wobble by blocking the injury inflammation, which is always the first step in healing. Surgery, of course, can weaken you by removing parts you counted on for strength, and God didn't put any extra ones in. And finally, you can worsen to the point of crisis, where stronger drugs and bigger operations seem to be your only choices. And, of course, you know that means for a knee, you get a new knee, or for a hip, you get a new hip. But you don't get, new you get new steel and new plastic. In neck and back, they do fusion, and certainly surgeons are excellent at pinning and screwing joints together when you have fallen apart. But these are crisis solutions. And at some point, side effects such as bleeding ulcers from drugs or surgical limitations can severely restrict your choices. And then fusion surgery places greater stresses on discs above and below, which means they too begin to wobble more and degenerate faster. So, rather than conventional treatment starting just with symptoms or when you're in crisis, think about this. You can choose an alternative medical solution called reconstructive therapy, or RT. This non-surgical treatment is aimed at the top, where the wobble starts. In other words, where your bones and bands start to get weakened, and that causes the painful problem. But see, rather than waiting for you to have symptoms and crises, distress, RT can stimulate the natural healing processes by placing a tiny amount of fluid into the support bands around your injured joints. And your body responds to this by making new tissue, new you, giving you more strength, improving your function, and restoring your ease. And, of course, all this just makes sense. So do you hope for lasting relief? Are you looking for alternatives to daily drugs or surgery? Do you fear other limiting future problems like worsening low back pains or neck pains, dull headaches, stress, not ready to face the day, muscle spasms, your joints hurting every time you try to do anything? Not just doing something excessively, but just doing what you routinely, usually do? Are you irritable as your life seems to be kind of frittering itself away? Are you losing sleep because of this? Are you losing sleep and therefore not facing each day with excitement and enthusiasm? Now, many physicians don't know about this medical alternative and thus can be skeptical. This is not surgery. This is a medical treatment, reconstructive therapy, not surgery. And as with many treatments later found to work surprisingly well for other problems, besides just approving the solutions that are used, the Food and Drug Administration makes no other determinations, for instance, whether this is effective for this use. So no one is going to see this published easily. It doesn't involve cortisone or arthritis or pain drugs, and certainly no one is running around promoting this. There's no fancy drugs to buy. Now, as with all treatments, individual results will vary, and no doctor can guarantee to help with any specific problem. But we can assure you that RT, reconstructive therapy, has been chosen by champions to get back to baseball, water skiing, handball, football, golf, all kinds of sports, including dance and things we think of as less aggressive, but certainly as stressing on our body kind of sports. Now, most people get results in as few as 12 to 24 treatments, sometimes less, sometimes more, and go on with enjoying life, work, family, and sports, much, much more. It's not too late for you to find out whether your sports injuries or arthritis or other pains might find relief with RT by treating the real cause of your problem. And indeed, that's what this is all about, treating the real cause rather than just putting fancy patches or Band-Aids on everything. The time is about 10 past the hour, and you're listening to Feeling Better, Naturally, with Dr. John Trowbridge on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. Your extended health forecast is brought to you now by Life Celebrating Health in Humble near Bush Intercontinental Airport. Our crystal ball shows clear to partly cloudy with the winds of change blowing. Are you acting more like an ostrich, burying your head in the sand because you don't feel able to deal with your health problems? Then your tail feathers will be getting wet when partly cloudy skies change to rain. Perhaps you're clucking around, kind of happy that a new medication has you feeling better, but not realizing that those fancy patches and Band-Aids might not be the best for you. If you're not changing anything and simply hoping for the best because you've been feeling pretty good, or maybe you're afraid or unsure, then cloudy to very stormy skies are likely on your horizon. Or maybe you're ready to make changes and to regain and maintain better health. Then sunny skies are coming your way. At Life Celebrating Health, you can depend on us as partners in your health care, and we'll design personalized programs to help keep your days sunny. And we'll show you how to spend less and get more. Call for your free telephone consultation with one of our treatment assistants. No fee, no obligation. Just dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. That's 1-800-FIX-PAIN. 1-800-FIX-PAIN. Ask to receive our free e-newsletter. Just share with us your email address or send your questions to us through our internet website, www.healthchoicesnow.com, because unlike the weather, you do have choices for better health. Marianne from North Shore emailed and asked me to interview folks with ankle injuries. Guess she's twisted hers in the past. So this morning we're glad to bring you two folks who have had kind of really different treatments, but for the same kind of problem. Our first guest this morning, Linda Bracey, is now in Port Charlotte, Florida, but previously was in Nassau Bay, Texas. I kind of think she likes the water. Linda, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful, and how are you?
Actually, I'm doing great.
That is just wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Especially when we think about how, shall we say, reluctant you were. Extremely. You just didn't want to think about anything like this.
No, I didn't.
Give us the story on that. You had pain in both feet, both ankles.
Yes, I did. As a child, I was always known to have weak ankles and consequently grew up with that problem. It got to the point to where it was affecting my life. I was afraid to step off of a curb, and because I would land the wrong way and twist my ankle. I couldn't play volleyball. I couldn't walk or jog or do anything, and it got to the point to where I was literally miserable. And my husband, who was seeing yourself,
seeing me, yes.
Yeah, at the same time, I went on a treatment with him and saw the procedure, and I thought that's when I became reluctant. But then,
because we use needles. I mean, of course, reasonably so. But he was getting such startling results.
Exactly. That's why I decided to just bite the bullet, so to speak, and go for it.
You didn't exactly decide. You hemmed and hawed and delayed, and every time he came in, we were treating his back.
Yes.
And every time he came in, we'd chit-chat about you.
Yes.
And we'd talk about you. And, he was telling me that every time you tried to exercise, the pain would stop you almost immediately. And, the more you tried, the quicker it stopped you.
Yes.
And that was of concern to him. He was worried about your future.
Well, it was very frustrating. I've always been outgoing, athletic. I like to walk and everything else, and it was getting to the point to where I was almost becoming housebound because the twisted ankles were happening so often, and each injury seemed like it would be lasting longer, the time to heal. And I was frustrated, and that's when I decided something had to be done.
Well, yeah, because you're a young'un, and you don't want to look at your years going by, and you're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So you decided, okay, you got up the courage.
Yes.
Said, okay, even if he uses needles. And we talked about this. You always have to worry about how wide the needle is, not how long, right?
Yes.
Because we use little tiny ones. And you came in for your first treatment, of course, and you were worried about how you get through it.
Yes, I was.
And how'd you do?
Well, actually, you have put me at ease greatly because you said, before we started, you said, now you're going to feel like a little mosquito bite. And come to find out, that's about what it felt like.
Yeah.
And you're just so thorough and you're quick. It's amazing. I thought I was going to be there for hours, but actually it took maybe 10 minutes at the most.
Yeah, and I tell bad jokes,
Yes,
too.
you do.
And while you're trying to figure out that bad joke, I'm quietly doing it.
Yeah, by the time I'm trying to figure it out and get through it, I mean, you've already been done and you're sitting there waiting on me.
Yeah. You know, we call that talkesthesia.
Yeah, okay. But it was a really good thing, and you told me what to expect. And when I noticed that there was healing and bruising, I thought something is happening. This is the way that it's supposed to go. And I was always after each treatment, I was always better the next day, and I was just
next day.
Yeah, I actually
Great.
was.
Because I remember when you first came in, before we even started,
Mm-hmm.
that you said, I'm in constant, sharp shooting pains every day.
Yes.
And that's not a way to go further, isn't it? In fact,
No.
that's a slow way. You're going to get caught that way.
And and it not only interfered with the daytime activities, but it was at night too. I mean, those sharp pains would literally keep me awake.
Wow.
And I tried heat, I tried everything, and nothing seemed to work.
You know, we try to tell people that irritability that you get is just from losing sleep, besides worrying.
Oh yeah, I was a lot of fun to live with.
Yeah, and you get worn down by the pain. After a while, you just, that is not the way to go on.
No, I'm telling you, it's just consequently I'm much better.
It's kind of neat, huh?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Now,
Yes,
if I
it is.
recall, we started in February of '99
Yes, sir.
and saw you here and there.
Right.
And one of the things, people say, well, if I start this, do I have to keep coming? Well, no, you don't have to. Of course, if you want to keep getting better. And so you'd show up and say, yeah, I'll do me a little bit more. And
Right.
You kept getting better.
Yeah, and the funny part about it was I actually looked forward to it.
Oh, you're sick.
Yeah, I know.
Another sicko.
But it was to the point that I didn't need any coaxing to go.
I know that.
I mean, the results. They spoke for themselves. I was able to get up and finally start doing things again.
And fairly quickly.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we're only talking, I think you had about a half a dozen. You had 7 treatments, I think, on your left ankle.
On my left ankle, right.
And
right.
4 on your right.
Yes, sir.
And we tell people, 12 to 24, but you did it in half the time or less.
Well, and along with the treatment, I mean, there's other things that I did too. I mean, I uptake my protein.
Yes.
We
had you on gelatin.
You had me on gelatin. I did the Zymane.
The nutritional supplements, right?
The nutritional supplements. So, there were different things coupled with the treatments that helped me get better.
Make your healing go faster. We want to do this as quickly as you can comfortably do this because, you got things to do. You got a life to catch up on.
Right.
And you kept going just incredibly fast in terms of your healing. You've come back from Florida for follow-up. And you keep telling me about all the fun things you're doing there.
Well, Dr. Trowbridge, it's amazing. I'm able to exercise again. I'm up to 5 to 10 miles a week.
Wow.
Walking. I'm bicycling. I'm doing all these things that I really wasn't able to do before.
And how many years had you suffered with limitations on that?
Oh, Dr. Trowbridge, it was at least, I'd say 15.
Yeah.
15 years. And then I noticed that I kept declining. I was not getting any better. And when an injury like that stops you from living and enjoying the things that you like to do, then you can live with it or you can get better.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And when you look at this, I mean, these are your adult years you're talking about. When you're out, being vigorous and doing the best you can, and all of a sudden you can't. That has an impact psychologically as well.
It does. It truly does. It truly does. And it's like I said, it's not worth it.
Right.
Especially when there's a known treatment out there. And had I not gone to see what actually happened with my husband
yes.
and the recovery that he was making, I would probably still be in the same shape.
Isn't that an interesting thing? Because he really, I know, pestered you to come on in.
Oh, he did. He was getting aggravating.
Oh, yeah. I remember when he asked me, he says, can you help with ankles and feet? And I said, well, usually. As a matter of fact, I didn't tell him, I don't recall, but that's one of the things that we usually get better, faster, and more reliably than anything else. And you wouldn't think it because you're walking on them.
And yeah, I mean, what you told me after the treatment, I said, now, can I walk on this? You said, absolutely.
Get out there and move, girl.
Yeah. And I thought, well, gee, I'm going to be laid up for at least a couple of days, but that was not the case.
Oh, gosh, no. Linda will be right back with you. It's now about 20 past the hour here on Star 790 KBME with the best medical updates ever. Let's pause briefly for this important message from one of our sponsors. Would you like to sleep soundly and feel better and have extra energy? If so, you need the Magnetico Sleep Pad. Blind studies have found that the Magnetico Sleep Pad helps people who suffer from pain, fibromyalgia, angina heart pains, fatigue, and pain from diabetic neuropathy. Sleep pad owners report relief from arthritis pain, back problems, migraines, high blood pressure, and other disorders. And here's the good news. Magnetico offers you a 6-month satisfaction guarantee. So start feeling good again. Start by calling this toll-free number now, 1-866-465-8892. That's 1-866-465-8892. And now let's do a blast from the past. Remember those red Burma Shave road signs on the sides of the highway there on the fence posts? Here's one for you. Spring has sprung, the grass has riz, where last year's careless drivers is. Burma Shave. So, Linda, you talk with such great excitement about this, but you certainly for months, I remember, held off. You just weren't coming in.
Right. I mean, it was all just overwhelming.
Yes.
I mean, I am not a needle advocate at all. I don't like them. Never have. And you're right. I did not want to do it. I thought there has got to be a better way.
Oh yeah, you and me both.
And then when you told me of your experience, I kind of thought, well, I guess I must be right online because I don't know of anybody that really likes to go get an injection.
Yeah, if he's such a sicko. A lot of people don't realize it, but the treatments that we do in the office, I'm the number one patient on all of them. Mm-hmm. And I have had reconstructive therapy to literally all of my joints except for my jaw joints because I have a disease called ligament laxity syndrome or hypermobility, where my rubber bands just genetically didn't tighten and still don't tighten like normal people.
Right.
And so I, just like you, I injured myself trying to do sports and exercise and things like that. And I've literally, like you were talking about being laid up for a while, I've been laid up for weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. When I found reconstructive therapy could so dramatically improve my condition, wow, I'm like you. I look forward to the treatments.
Well, Dr. Trowbridge, another thing that I liked about it, I mean, there are no side effects.
Yeah.
Other than a little bit of tenderness.
Right.
And inflammation, which is what you want.
But
right?
Heck, you were already sore to begin with.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I liked about it. I mean, you don't use any harmful drugs or anything else, and
right.
That's the good part.
Well, that's the great part.
Yeah.
God's healing is available to us, and the problem is we start getting so smart, we think we can improve on the pattern. So we use anti-everything, anti-inflammatories, anti-pain, anti-ulcer, antacids, things like that. Mm-hmm. And every time you get an you should say to yourself, wait a second. If this is what my body is doing, shouldn't we ask why it's doing that? And how is it trying to heal? And indeed, what we're creating is this little tiny inflammation right where your weakness is, mm-hmm. exactly where the injury is. And rather than stopping the inflammation, we're provoking it.
Right.
And turning on the healing. Mm-hmm. And you're great evidence on that.
Well, and consequently, I do not do any anti-inflammatories anymore.
Oh, no.
I mean, I don't take...
they got to send their kids to college, too.
I don't. I stick with the old Tylenol, and that's just about as far as I go.
And how often do you need it?
When I've had a really vigorous day, like, I've been on my feet, say, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, nonstop. Then I notice that my feet are tender the next morning, and, I'll just take an extra strength Tylenol, and I'll go back out, and I'll go for my walk.
Oh, you mean you act just like the rest of the world, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Overuse creates discomfort, but you can get by it, and you don't need anti-inflammatories that would slow healing and such like that.
Right, exactly.
And you go out for your walk, and you do fine afterwards, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm okay, and and even if I still feel a little bit of tenderness, I take my nutritional supplement.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Which helps.
Of course they help. They give you the opportunity for more healing because you're putting the spare parts in.
Right, right.
A lot of people don't realize how important those spare parts are, but I tell folks it's like the hinge pins in your doors in your house.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, it's just a tiny part, but it sure does make that door work good, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
Yes, it does.
and people go, well, I'm not sure how important that is. Well, let's assume your house has 10 doors, okay? If you take out 3 hinge pins from each one, you put 15 hinge pins in your left pocket and 15 in your right pocket, go walking around, that house is no longer secure because anybody can come in.
Exactly.
And it's no longer safe because you can get hurt trying to open and close those doors. That's the significance of those trace factors. So when you talk about doing nutrition, we have a total program. People think we're just talking about RT. No, we inject, no cortisone, no morphine, no Demerol, but we do have you do the trace factors and walk to exercise it. Like we said, keep moving.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Trowbridge, do you remember after my first couple of injections, I asked you, when can I start walking vigorously and jogging, and you recommended that I start out with water aerobics first.
Right.
Because it's less impact in the beginning.
Exactly. Water jogging, or, trampolines work nice for that, too.
Yeah. Well, I did that, and for a couple, I guess it was off and on for a month while I was getting my injections. And
how'd you feel?
Really good. Good. It was exciting to just be able to get up and move again.
Right, without hurting.
Yeah, and without being intimidated by high curbs or be walking along and stepping on a piece of gravel that's the size of a pea and hurting my ankle.
Right.
And it was really good to be able to just zip through high grass and not worry about stepping in a chug hole and turning an ankle.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's been a good thing for me.
I tell young ladies that they sell these high heels that have magnets on the bottom.
Yeah.
They can find the little tiny hole in the sidewalk, wherever it is, and twist your ankle. So.
Oh, I gave up high heels a long time ago.
Not even worth it, huh?
I have no use for them anymore. No. Those days are gone.
Comfort is the key. It really is.
Yeah.
So when you talk with people about it, are they skeptical?
Well, yeah, especially when I have a couple of neighbors in the area where,
yes.
where I now reside, and the least little ache that they get, they go to the doctor and they feel better because they were injected with cortisone.
Right.
And I just cringe. I literally cringe.
Oh,
and,
gosh.
I tell them, I said, there really is a better way and a healthier way.
Exactly.
And then I describe my events, with life.
all the stuff you and I went through, yes.
Yeah. And they're still skeptical. They don't really understand how it works. Well, you say proliferance. What do you mean they inject proliferance? Well, the way I understand it, it's and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Trowbridge, but it's calcium. And
salt water.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And what it does is that you're not supposed to have calcium out in your tissues. So when it's there, your body responds by saying, what is this? And it starts a reaction, the inflammation reaction that leads then to the healing, which is proliferation or growth. You're just adding to the rubber bands that have been injured. Well, of course, if you fake out your body to think that it's just been injured, but it hasn't, it's not weaker, it only gets stronger. And each treatment, we fake it out, we make it think, some sort of injury happened, and all it does is build new tissue and build new tissue and build new tissue, and pretty soon those rubber bands are thicker and stronger. They can even be up to 40% stronger than ever before.
Well, I'll tell you something, what I noticed, Dr. Trowbridge, during my first 2 or 3 injections, I'd get out, and I must admit I was feeling kind of cocky because I was able to do things that I hadn't done, and I would slightly sprained the ankle, but you know what? Instead of being out for 2 or 3 days on crutches, I was maybe 2 hours.
Just kind of laid a little bit low.
Yeah, with ice, laid a little bit low, and boom, I was fine the next day.
Funny how when you're healing, you can tolerate much more of that, isn't it?
Yeah, and when the injuries kept getting less and less and less, and the recovery time kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter, I said, this is really working for me. That's
natural healing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Linda,
Really
thank
is.
you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that our listeners today are saying, maybe that'll work for me. And it's people like you who, after they get over the maybe and who get on in, that really makes a difference. So thanks so much.
Well, if I can do it, and as skeptical as I was, I'm telling you, it will work for them.
It can work, huh?
Yes, sir.
You have a great day and a wonderful week.
I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
It's now about 30 minutes past the hour here on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. Sometimes, especially when our attention is focused on health problems, we forget that laughter is the best medicine. So how about considering this a woman's perfect breakfast? She's sitting at the table with her gourmet coffee. Her son is on the cover of the Wheaties box. Her daughter is on the cover of Business Week. Her boyfriend is on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And her husband is on the back of the milk carton. So if you have a doctor joke or something similar for good health that you'd like to share for us on our show, please let us know. We'd be happy to share that with others. Let's get straight to the question. What are you waiting for? Sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Angry at not feeling better? Threatened with pain or limitations? Fearful about your future? Can you trust that you'll find the answers, the ones you need right now? You'd better take this responsibility seriously. You've got to find the answer somehow, and you'd better be right because your survival might be in the balance. So listen to what I have to offer. Over the past 24 years, I've developed and improved integrative treatment programs to help many people suffering with a great variety of frustrating illnesses: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, heart disease even after surgery, and especially congestive heart failure, shortness of breath, restless sleep or insomnia, poor circulation and leg pains, hypoglycemia and diabetes, poor memory, even Alzheimer's or other dementias, migraines and other headaches, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, ulcerative colitis and other gut problems, frustrating skin conditions, disabling neck and back pains, sports injuries and arthritis, such as we're talking about this morning, prostatitis, chronic urinary infections, chronic sinus and lung infections, PMS, menopause, and even menopause, and the list goes on because health deals with basic body processes, not just squashing particular symptoms. You could feel better than you ever expected. Now, I've lectured on these topics for over 20 years. I've written books and medical papers to share how to make healing happen. The leading authors and newsletter editors in preventive medicine have been personal friends of mine for years. And in my 25 years of practice, I found that very few people know that simple, effective, and cost-conscious solutions are available to help with their problems, starting now. And few people realize that several of the problems for which they're seeing different specialists are often related to the same basic cause. So correcting what is causing one problem might improve several other problems that frustrate, worry, or even anger you. Make your healthcare investment pay even bigger dividends in your future. Get details on our exclusive and unique cashable voucher program that can return to you cash dollars for your future expenses. We're here to save your health and save your wallet as well. And that's what this show is all about. And that's what we're all about at Life Celebrating Health in Humble. Call for a free consultation with one of our treatment assistants. No fee, no obligation. Just find out more about you and how we might help. Just dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN. That's 1-800-FIX-PAIN. You're listening to Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge. Invite your family and friends to tune in and join us here on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever, Saturday mornings from 6 to 7. Now, our next guest is one of our favorite college students, Carrie Parker of Texas A&M. Giga-Maggies. How you doing, Carrie? I got a laugh out of you. And that comes from a tea sipper here.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Young lady, we were talking earlier because you're all grown up now. When you came to see me, you were just a middle teenager.
I was.
And frustrated and worried.
Very.
Yeah. You were having a lot of pain and weakness in your left ankle.
Sure was.
Yeah.
Sure was.
Yeah. You want to tell us how that happened?
Okay. Well, I was in competitive cheerleading when I was in high school. I was on a competition
Tell
squad.
people what competition cheerleading is. That's not just at games.
Right. That's
Right.
not just at games. That is where you take those squads to competitions all over.
Like we see on TV, on
Right.
ESPN and stuff. Right, okay.
Right.
Like the big time.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
That's the kind of stuff we do.
Right.
And I'm a base, which is one of those type of people that throw the other girls up in the air.
Yeah. And you have to?
Right.
catch them. What goes up must come down.
That it does.
Yeah.
And when it came down, I had to catch it.
Yep. And this young lady had her whole body weight, and yours, right?
Right.
Over your left ankle.
Over my left ankle. And
What'd you feel right away?
oh, extreme pain. Everything just snapped. I actually heard it snap.
We don't have to go into that kind of detail here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was painful.
And you hoped it would get better, but you were fearful then, weren't you?
I certainly was. I knew something was not right.
Uh-huh.
But being an athlete, I tried to cover it up and just go on with my regular routine. And
Oh, yeah, got to just go on. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was talking earlier this morning with our guest who had her ankle injured, and she was much older than you. She's an adult. And she has the same thing I had, ligament laxity syndrome, okay? And you definitely had ligament laxity. That means that your rubber bands just stretch a little extra. That's how come you're so good at cheerleading and, dance and stuff like that.
Right.
But you didn't get better.
No, I didn't.
So
Not at all.
after what, 5 or 6 months, you went to see one of the orthopedic surgeons.
Right. I visited many different doctors with the same results. They were not able to help me at all. And it was very frustrating.
And they even looked inside, right?
They wanted to.
Okay, they wanted to.
But Mom wasn't so keen on that.
Oh, not with her little baby, huh?
Right.
And all you were doing was limping around.
Yes, I was in constant pain.
Not exactly the way to keep doing competition cheerleading.
Not at all. I mean, we'd have to tape my ankle where it was completely immobile for competitions, and even then, it was bad.
Carrie, that's an excellent point, though, right there. What you did was put outside support on. Because you were lacking the inside support. You had torn or stretched the rubber bands.
Right.
And, we tell people if a crutch or some other brace or taping like yours helps on the outside, what that's telling you is the structure isn't supporting you on the inside. That's what RT can help.
Right.
So you came to see me, and, of course, I told you we were going to use needles.
Yes.
Yes.
Bum, bum, bum.
Just what you wanted to hear, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And how'd you work up the gumption to do it?
Well, I was really and truly just tired of being in so much pain. I was at the point where I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to, if this could help, that's where I was headed.
Took you a year to get that point, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And no one else offered you anything like this, right?
No one did.
Okay.
No, sir.
And none of the medications made you any better, just
Oh, no, not at all. Just made me loopy.
loopy. And that's no fun
No.
on going to school, huh?
Right.
And it's also
Definitely.
dangerous with competition, too. You have to be sharp right then, not loopy.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So how'd treatment number 1 go?
Treatment number 1 was very nerve-wracking. I was pretty nervous.
I tell people if you can make it through number 1, because that's where you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Then everything else after that is kind of easy. You know what's coming. You're not happy about it, but you know what's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad at all, to be honest. It was definitely tolerable, and just knowing in the end what it did for me,
Yes.
totally worth it.
Yeah, and that's the problem with going through a treatment like this. Once you sign the papers to go through surgery, that's it. You're going.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do something like this, you have to get the healing process. That takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look back from the results, hey, that was fun. That was easy. That was okay.
Right.
But looking forward to saying, how many times do I have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. But you did awesome. 12 treatments.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And each time you came in, obviously saying, do we have to? And the answer is yes, we have to.
Yes, it was.
Yes, we do.
Brings back sweet memories.
It does, doesn't it? But you kept going and you kept competing.
I did.
And tell me about that.
Well, after my treatments were finished, it was amazing the difference that I saw. I mean, even today, my left ankle is probably at least 3 times stronger than my other ankle. My other ankle wasn't injured.
Right.
And so it was
Just having the hypermobility part.
Right,
Right.
except for that small detail.
Right, exactly.
But
And so it's definitely stronger than you were before.
very, very much stronger.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you busy yourself getting around college.
I do.
No problems with the ankle?
None whatsoever.
That's awesome.
Completely healed.
Isn't that great?
Yes, it certainly is.
Well, that is so great. We want more details from you, Carrie, so we'll be right back.
Okay.
It's now about 40 past the hour here on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. Now, we sometimes forget that spiritual centering is an important part of healing, getting better and staying healthier. So today's verse is from Proverbs chapter 11, verse 25. A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. And, spring is the season for renewal and refreshing. So see what you can do to refresh the lives of others and then reap what you sow. An important part of going further in life. All right, Carrie, we're back with you now. I know that you went on and did happy things and invited your friends to come. And indeed, we had a nice young lady that came in because you had done so well. She did very well as well.
Wonderful.
And, she had the same trepidations you did.
Right.
That's because they are smart. You guys aren't crazy using needles. That doesn't sound like fun.
Yes.
But the results were.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more now. When you think of your future, any limitations around that ankle?
None.
None.
None whatsoever. I mean, I've been wakeboarding and the whole 9 yards, and no
Wait
problem.
a minute. We didn't talk about that, did we? Wakeboarding, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I tried to tear myself up doing that.
Ooh.
Landed on my ear one time.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, and I had started doing that after I got my reconstructive therapy, starting to repair me and such. And then I realized I had gone for a whole lot more years than you and had injured lots more joints, okay? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm going to injure my whole body doing this. So I got smart and stopped. But that's all right. You're youthful. You've got a lot of repair that's happened, and you're growing in a nice, wonderful way. When you tell people, hey, I did this, what do they say?
They're very curious. I have to say that because they've never heard of the treatment before. But
right.
I definitely let them know about it, and they seem pretty interested. And I mean, especially for the ones that were in the kind of pain that I was in.
Right.
They're definitely looking for answers.
Oh yeah, you were suffering.
Yes, I was.
And that's like an everyday basis, interrupts sleep, and that gets in the way of studies. And
it certainly does.
Doesn't make you want to think enthusiastically about going to the dance and taking a walk in the park and whatever. Mm-hmm. When you tell people you were really that bad off, do they believe you?
Seeing me now, no, they don't, because I'm bouncing around A&M. But for those that did have known me a long time and knew what I went through.
Yeah, who saw what you were really like, exactly.
Right, I made believers out of them.
That is so neat.
Yes.
Now, have you had friends go on and have surgery?
I have.
How'd they do?
They've been limping around for a while, and they even complain that they're still in pain. I've heard a lot of them say.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
That
surgery, when it works, is dramatic. I mean, it is stunningly helpful. Mm-hmm. The only question is that, afterwards you can't say, listen, can we undo this? Mm-hmm. Can we take it back? And that's the reason we tell people. Sometimes I have people come in, and I say, you know what you need? You need a good, friendly surgeon. And they go, no, I didn't come here for that. And I say, I understand that, but I'm trying to give you my best take on, what's going to get you better.
Right.
And they say, well, can we try this first? Actually, one of my real good friends came in. He really busted his knee up, and he was a Spartan football player in the years past, and he was getting on in age like me. Mm-hmm. And I told him he busted his disc in his knee so badly he really needed surgery. And the surgeon couldn't take him for several weeks, so he calls me 6 weeks later and he says, listen, my knee is doing so good. The swelling's down and I can walk on it. What do you think? I said, get in here. And since that time, I have not turned away people right away. I've said, let's give this a try. Mm-hmm. And I think in that time period, I have not sent anyone for surgery on their busted knee. Because they've fixed.
Excellent.
And that's the fun part.
Yes.
So
very rewarding.
Oh yeah. And when you look at what you went through, I mean, of course, looking back, it's easy to say that. What kind of hint would you tell someone looking forward and saying, well, gee, if I maybe give this a try, what am I looking at?
Looking at, if they went through the treatment, looking at a pain-free life, basically.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
You know, the doctor
As best as it can get.
who taught me how to do this and who's treated all my joints, Dr. Bill Faber in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, wrote the book called Pain, Pain, Go Away, because he means it. We'll be right back with you, Carrie. It's now about 45 past the hour here on Star 790 KBME, the best medical updates ever. For your better health, let's pause briefly for this important message from one of our sponsors. Would you like to sleep soundly and feel better, have extra energy? Dr. Dean Bonley wrestled with these problems and came up with his wonderful invention, the Magnetico Sleep Pad. Scientific blind studies found that the Magnetico Sleep Pad helps people who suffer from pain, fibromyalgia, angina, fatigue, and pain from diabetic neuropathy. Sleep Pad owners report relief from arthritis pain, back problems, migraines, high blood pressure, and many other diseases and disorders. Now, you may think the Magnetico Sleep Pad is too good to be true, and Dr. Bonley wants you to be completely satisfied. So Magnetico offers you a 6-month satisfaction guarantee. That's right, a 6-month satisfaction guarantee. So start feeling good again. For more information on the Magnetico Sleep Pad, please call this toll-free number now, 1-866-465-8892. That's 1-866-465-8892. Today, Mariah Carey, born this date, 1970. And on the 25th of this month, Elton John in 1947. Astronaut Jim Lovell, 1928. And entertainer Aretha Franklin, one of the greats, 1942. On the 26th, Diana Ross, 1942. And on the 28th, Reba McEntire, 1955. My, how the years go by when we're having fun and they're entertaining us. Carrie, when you talk with people and they're planning on surgery and such, what would they want to hear from you in order to decide, maybe I'll just try this reconstructive therapy instead? Have you ever found anything that really, they go, wow, that's right?
Well, basically, because a lot of them are pretty scared about going under the knife, and...
Yeah, and rightfully so, I understand. Been there myself.
Right. And so I tell them normally, hey, you might not have to do that. And I let them know all about this treatment that I went through. And like I said, they seem pretty interested in it. I mean, if they can find a way not to have surgery, it's a good thing.
Exactly. I tell people just tuck the information aside. If you're not ready yet to consider really doing an important treatment like reconstructive therapy, at least before you think seriously about surgery, bring it back up in your reference files and, check on it. And people certainly can call and talk with our staff. I know they talked with you a bunch.
They certainly do.
Give you a little bit of reassurance here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to give a 1-minute take-home message, what would you want people to remember about your experience with reconstructive therapy for your ankle?
Well, basically that it completely changed my life. I got to be young and youthful again as far as my joints are concerned, and I'm able to lead all the same activities that I used to when I was younger. And basically, if people out there are in the same kind of pain that I am or was in, they should definitely look into giving you a call, Dr. T.
Exactly. And, that's why we call it a pain relief center rather than a pain management. We don't want you to learn how to manage your pain. You're already getting by with it.
Right.
We want you to learn how to live without it and go on with your life. I mean, that it's so wonderful because when you say, to feel young again that way, because you are young and you are in the prime of your life, and it ought to be when everything works right.
Right.
And you suffer not with limitations. We got to talk more about this wakeboarding thing.
It's not an everyday occurrence, but...
Okay. Just take good care of yourself while you're doing it, okay?
I certainly will.
And, gosh, I know you were nervous before this, but you have done a wonderful, wonderful interview for us this morning, so thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. God bless you. Have a great week.
And same to you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
So, what's the take-home message from our guest this morning? Well, simply this. Injuries are no fun. Just like the slogan, safety is no accident. But suffering is only temporary if you seek out the natural healing made possible by following God's plan for healing rather than resorting to drugs or even surgery you might not need. Now remember, drugs and surgery can be very helpful. They do their job. But is their job the one that you need done? And that's the key question, isn't it? I mean, what are you waiting for in terms of finding out an answer to that question? Stories such as these two patients have shared with us are detailed in my 1996 book with Dr. Bill Faber called Do What You Want to Do. And the message there is simple, and that is for you to have hope that help really is available and now. Now, today's program of Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge has not been brought to you by the number 7 and not by the letter M, but instead by the book Do What You Want to Do. Let me share with you, on the cover it says, Get Pain Relief Now, and that's certainly what our two friends have talked about. There's no daily drugs, no surgery. You can heal naturally. You can literally get stronger, as they've described. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you're talking about joint pains, sports injuries, nerve pains even, back pains, neck pains, headaches, arthritis in general that can limit you. Now, let me share with you one of the stories from our book. And this one talks about a severely broken ankle. This is worse than we've talked about with the folks this morning. This is an interview with Arden from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, conducted by Dr. Faber, my colleague, my trainer, my teacher, my doctor who treats me. He says, you were born in Fond du Lac, is that correct? Arden says that's correct. And Dr. Faber says, when did you first hurt your ankle? He says, in about 1979, I broke it severely. Dr. Faber, you had pins placed, is that correct? Arden says, well, I had screws in it, and I don't know, 4 or 5 screws. The ankle was busted out sideways, and they took the screws out after it healed up. They had trouble finding them. The bone had grown over, and the ankle was good, really good, for about 10 years. And after that, it started going downhill, aching a lot. I went to an orthopedic surgeon, and the only thing they offered me was to fuse the ankle so it wouldn't bend and get rid of the pain that way. I did take painkillers for a couple of years, I guess, and then a friend of mine that I see, kind of irregular, but he'd been coming down to you, Dr. Faber, for hip treatment. He told me about it. I didn't think a lot of it, but I went to one of the seminars or lectures that you held, and, well, I was still kind of doubtful. So I had a couple of other friends that had some problems, and I had them come down to give it a try, and they were successful. Kind of interesting how Arden sends down his experimental friends. So then I started coming, he says, and we had 15 treatments, I believe. Dr. Faber says, before you came, your ankle bothered you for about 5 years? Arden says, yeah. Dr. Faber says, and how did it bother you? Well, I couldn't walk any distance, and sometimes after sitting in a recliner, when I'd get up, I'd maybe have to stand for possibly 5 minutes before I dared take another step. It was just terrific pain. Dr. Faber says, what did you notice after the reconstructive therapy treatments? Arden says, well, it's a lot stronger. I still have a little bit of pain when I get up from reclining in the chair early in the morning, but it just takes a few steps, and then it's feeling quite good. I'm on my feet probably from 5 in the morning till 5 at night, or 6 for sure, and a lot of times I'm on my feet maybe 2-3 hours after supper. I think it's quite strong. Dr. Faber says, how long could you be on your feet before the treatments? Well, says Arden, at the end of the day, it was tired. I was waiting for the end of the day, and I didn't really do anything after I got home. I just sat. Dr. Faber says, and you became satisfied with your result how long ago? Arden says, well, it was in August, I think. I had my last treatment. That was 1995. This interview is conducted several months later. So this is January, so September, October, November, December, January, 5 months. You're feeling better? Arden says yes. Dr. Faber says, any other comments? Did I give you any prescriptions for your pain? Arden says, no. Doctor asks, any other comments about your ankle? Arden says, well, I'm pretty satisfied with it. It's a big improvement from what it was, and that's for sure. So these are the kinds of stories that we hear from patients all the time when we talk about reconstructive therapy. Now remember, RT, or reconstructive therapy, is both an art and a science. Practitioners have various levels of knowledge, skills, and experience. For example, reconstruction properly done ultimately depends on the patient's healing ability. The patient treated properly with a healing ability should show improvements in half a dozen treatments. Now, if the patient has a flat response or a worsening, these are signs that other problems exist, And at that point, the pet practitioner's knowledge and skill and experience come into play for diagnosing what problem or problems are at hand. Because, 6 treatments is kind of an arbitrary, but we need to see you starting to heal. And as you've heard from the folks who have shared with you several times now, some of them just need a few more and they're better. Others require lots more in order to be better. In any event, since reconstruction merely stimulates the body's tissue healing response, a positive response should be able to be brought about in time, providing that other factors are not interfering. And in our experience, we find most people need 12 to 30 or more treatments to complete their healing. Now, it's a good idea for patients in many cases, if not most, to seek gentle chiropractic, osteopathic, and massage therapy, and neurofascial therapy. This is neural therapy we've discussed in earlier shows, or to receive manipulative therapies along with reconstruction and neural therapy. And if you're receiving those, you'll usually notice treatment starting in those first 6 sessions. And after treatment, it is normal to experience some stiffness and soreness. And if you have pain after a number of treatments, you have still a flat response, this indicates that other problems are present and need to be corrected so that reconstruction can be successful. And remember, the idea is to treat you successfully so that you can do what you want to do. To get your copy of this book, please dial 1-800-FIX-PAIN in order to get your copy of Do What You Want to Do. We also have Dr. Faber's book, Pain, Go Away, and his book on neural therapy called Instant Pain Relief. There is a lot of information out there. You can find out. You don't have to sit in the dark. You don't have to take my word for it. You can actually get details and then come discuss how this might fix you or your problem so that, if you're really concerned, you can get informed first before you ever have to look any further. Jane from Houston emailed to ask whether anything could be done to help her get some sleep. Her husband is running a freight train, and that's while he is asleep. So this next time we'll share with you some special features about sleep apnea. Incidentally, sleep apnea and then several of the other treatments that we discuss on this show will be covered in my upcoming book, Fly Forever, Maintain or Regain Your Medical, so that those folks who find that their medical certification from the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, is slipping because they're slipping out of standards, we like to get you back into standards so that you can keep flying forever. Today's show is dedicated to all those fine folks, thousands of them, who made another delightful extravaganza for us to enjoy, the Houston Fat Stock Show and Rodeo. Now, it's politically correct to say livestock show, but political or not, it sure is fun. So thanks, Houston, and thanks to all our volunteers and participants. The Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Well, our production engineer today, I always hate to start this because it means our show is getting over, but our production engineer is Mark Fisher. Production assistants, Catherine Hill and Kathy Guyan. Thanks for joining me today. Have you learned practical pointers to help you regain and maintain better health? Maybe to help you guide your family or friends toward new solutions for their problems? Audio tape and CD copies of the show are available for your personal reference and to share with family and friends. Simply call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for details. Now, what health problems are bringing you down, limiting your comfort, threatening your future? Share your questions by email, info, at healthchoicesnow.com. We say that because if you don't know you have choices now, you don't have any. Or by fax, 281-540-4329. Or by mail, just call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for our address or call to talk with one of our treatment assistants and let us know what special information we might send to you. Receive our free e-newsletter simply by sharing your email address with us and enjoy the free downloads available on our website, www.healthchoicesnow.com. That's all together, healthchoicesnow.com. Feel free to come by to see what's so special and visit with patients who are feeling better right now. They are anxious to share their successes with you in person. We're next to Northeast Medical Center Hospital near Bush Intercontinental Airport in Humboldt. Call 1-800-FIX-PAIN for directions or a map because we'd love to show you where better health happens. Remember, if your money, your time, your effort, your comfort, or even your life is at stake, get the very best answers and the very best treatment you can find. Rely on experts who can make sense out of your problems and who have the experience to produce results for you. When life is your choice, failure is not an option. Our message is one of hope for a healthier future, and we aim to produce these results for you. Invite your family and friends to join me next week, Saturday morning from 6 to 7 on Star 790 KBME for the best medical updates ever. Exclusively on Feeling Better Naturally with Dr. John Trowbridge. Have a great day and a wonderful week.